They call the meeting to order. 10:04 a.m. And we'd like to conduct our roll call. The members joining us via video conference, if you could indicate if you're alone or if anyone over the age of 18 is with you. Jesse Cook. Present. Nathan Trump.
Present.
Dino Kimoto.
Present, but not alone.
Glenn Hong is excused. Karen Seddon.
Here and alone.
Dave Inazumi.
Present.
Chair Hurd.
Yamamoto present, alone.
Oh, hi, Earl. Thank you.
Hi.
Deputy Director Dane Wicker.
Present, alone.
Deputy Director Kara Kahahane. Excused. Okay. Vice Chair Okuhama
Present and alone.
and myself present. The Attorney General's. All right, before I start, I just wanted to recognize some of the ADCC staff in the room. Our Executive Director, Wendy Gady. Dale Roden, Hawaii Water Systems Manager. Mark Takimoto, Senior Executive Assistant.
Just one outside.
On the right side, and Ken Nakamoto, our Project Manager. Thank you for joining us and doing all the work for us. Anyway, we're gonna defer the chair's report. Committee and permitted interaction group reports, there are none. And for efficiency, the chair is making a small procedural change to how we move through today's agenda. I intend to first take up the informational items before moving on to our action items. So all of today's informational presentations are directly relevant to the decisions we are asked to make today. And I believe receiving that information first will be of great help to all of us in making sound and informed decisions. So with that, do I need a motion for that, or we can just do that? I'd like to move to a presentation by Mark Stoudemire of Corteva regarding recent activities and priorities for the future. I'd also like to make note from the Attorney General's office that for these agendas, items F1, F3, and F5, the presentations by Mark at Corteva, by Joshua Yohara and Mike Fye of Pikaha Ag, and Les Milnes. We will be listening to your presentations, but there will be no board discussion at this time. Please proceed.
Perfect. Chair Watts, Executive Director Gady, thank you, and members of the board, thank you for being here today and traveling so far. And I'd like to give just a little presentation on sort of the background of Corteva, what we've been doing in partnership with ADC, and sort of what our plans are for the future. And thank you for loading the presentation. Next slide, please. So for those of you who may not be familiar with Corteva, we are actually a company that was spun out of Dow and DuPont about 6 years ago. So we're a fairly young company. It was the agricultural components of both of those companies were intentionally spun as Corteva.
Chair. Sorry, Chair. Sorry to interrupt you folks. We don't see the slide.
Oh.
I see in email inbox.
I'm not sharing.
Ken sharing, but it's a email inbox.
Maybe you're sharing one screen but not the other, or?
I'm not.
Chief's not. Can you see that now?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Perfect. And so, yeah, thank you. And so that you may be familiar with the brand Pioneer Seed. It's been around, it's gonna be 100 years old, next year. It was a brand, actually a company that DuPont had purchased, and is still a brand today. Next slide. Our purpose is to provide high quality seeds and solutions for those who produce, so it'd be farmers, and then also consumers. So all of us are consumers, and making sure that we're doing it in a sustainable way into the future. Next slide. We tackle various things with global climate change, tariffs, other things. There's pressures on farmers all around us. Our population is growing, food security with a lot of wars around the world. Takes its toll, and of course, climate change is a major factor that we are breeding plants to resist and to help these challenges. Next slide. Our operations here, we used to have 5 operations between Dow and DuPont. We merged 6 years ago. We now have 2 locations. So on Kauai, we have our research operations, and on Oahu, we have our what we call parent seed, which is sort of further down a product development pipeline. The crops we work on are corn, soybean, canola, wheat, rice, sorghum, and many others. In Hawaii, though, we focus mainly in corn, breeding and development. But Corteva is a global company, but we've been in Kauai since 1968, so quite a long time, actually right here in Kekaha. We have about 170 employees, and then hire contingent workers and H2A as needed for labor peaks. Next slide. We did begin right here in 1968. We are a year-round operation focusing on corn breeding. We do operate in 4 locations across the island. And then a lot of that is to ensure we have good integrated pest management to avoid pests and diseases. We have high-tech shade houses right here in Kekaha, modern laboratories, and seed processing facilities. So you might think, well, why is plant breeding important in Hawaii? And the climate is ideal. As a plant breeder, you're growing out the crop, you're evaluating it, collecting seeds, and then you want to do that cycle again. North America, you have one chance to do it before winter hits, and so Hawaii, you can plant and do selection for plant breeding every week of the year. Hawaii is also reduced risk for natural disasters compared to other places in the world, knock on wood. And a critical piece for us is that we're part of our United States regulatory system. So for shipping, the laws in place are much simpler in the United States than they would be in a different country. And of course, the long legacy of agricultural workers and infrastructure allows growth, not only here, but on many other islands as well. Next slide. We've had a long and great partnership with ADC. We've invested over 15 million over the last couple of years into modern shade houses, and I know you don't have time today, but invite you to a tour to see that on your next opportunity. We have almost 7 acres of area underneath insect protected shade houses. We also have around 760 acres of land that we farm as well, licensed from ADC. The yellow dot is the location of our building, and the picture on the bottom, everything in blue are our current leased and licensed acres from ADC. Next slide. We have a great history with helping to support farmers. On Oahu, we have a great partnership with Go Farm Hawaii, where they're actually embedded at our Corteva facility. We partner with them here as well, but unfortunately they were not able to have a presence on the west side. So in partnership with ADC about 4 years ago, we came up with a farmer incubator concept where there was an acre, or field 107, about 35 acres, where what we wanted to do is we pay for the land and the water, help with agricultural support, to get farmers on there to then allow them to gain the experience, the markets, the skill sets needed to then access ADC lands. And really happy to say that Adam Asquith with Hawaii Taro Company went through that program and now has leased lands from ADC in field 207 right across the road there. So a great success story and something we certainly would like to continue doing to help farmers on the west side. Next slide. In that same area, we have Emilio, who grows a lot of dryland taro, cassava, and has made some value-added products as well. From that is doing really, a great opportunity for him. Next. Just another highlight, we had a partnership with the University of Hawaii this last spring where Professor Dr. Amjad Ahmed planted a trial of different beans. So these are pinto beans and a new novel bean from Peru, a popping bean that could be crops that farmers could potentially grow out here in the west side. So we're very excited about partnering with University of Hawaii and ADC and identifying new crops that could be useful for farmers in accessing the lands out here. And we take our farming very seriously. Back in 2023, we won an award from the Kauai Soil and Water Conservation District for the best practices that we do out here with cover cropping, windbreaks, conservation. And so just as a point, we really do care about the farming that we're doing today on ADC lands. We are a long-term tenant of ADC. We're in good standing. We have an interest in expanding our footprint. We're in a growth position. We do require that both for growth and also seed purity and quality. We also have desire to invest further in our shade house facilities. And Corteva is in a position where we can pay both CAMs and rent fees immediately on any new potential licensed lands. For us to be successful, there is some history of some major disease outbreaks on the west side that have hobbled the industry. So certainly, the ability to fallow is important for pest management. And then, of course, distance from other corn crops, whether it's sweet corn or field corn, just for quality concerns and regulatory concerns as well. And I would say one ask that we have of ADC is to really consider ways to streamline the ability to sublease. We have an interest in being able to do crop rotations with other farmers for different crops. Legumes, beans can be a great partner there. We have an interest in some of the lands that may not be suitable for row crops. If we could get other farmers into those areas as well. And of course, continuing to support, the farmer incubator programs to identify and get farmers that can eventually access the ADC lands that are available. But we thank you for the continued partnership, and I appreciate the opportunity to present today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Here we have a. Thought I had a hand raised.
Once again, thanks, Mark, for Corteva. We'd like to move to informational item number 2, presentation by Alex Su, Balloon Hawaii.
Did we just check for public testimony at all, or?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I couldn't hear. Thank you.
No worries. Alex Su, Balloon Hawaii Farming, regarding their farming plans and kickoff.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, ADC board, Sarah Watts, Wendy. Thanks for coming. I know we're on the same flight with some of you guys. It's a long way to get here. My presentation will be very brief here. I don't have, in terms of farming plan, we know this September will be our 3rd year. We started here summer of 22, and it was really with a handshake with Josh at Hartung, and even Mark in meeting the KAA group. And I thought, in meeting the KAA, this is a community that we want to be here for the long term. The support of the community, the organization that managed the irrigation system, the security, and the togetherness of this community, it's just by far very impressive, hard to find. So while we're working to get a lease square with GNR, and it took us about 18 months to really work that out, Josh was able to tweak just a real short-term crop by crop lease. And I do wanna second to what Marcus said about streamlining some of the subleases. Cause without that, we couldn't have been here. For that summer, we got our feet wet. We were able to move equipment, get a lot of crop in the ground just to test the market, what it's like. And to learn the logistic of getting product to market. That's been one of the biggest challenges, and today, it's still a big challenge. Fast forward, so now we're in Gay Robinson the past 2.5 years. Production is up, we do have 2,000 acre under lease with them. Our involvement with KAA, while we would never, on the ground with a formal lease. We were, from the standpoint of just being in a lot of KAA meeting, understanding the infrastructure and the people, got pretty comfortable and kept looking at the opportunity to use more grounds in Cape Cod. The summer that we're here, we were way out in Mana, and to go from daily from Oahu back here in Fort, it's a long way. After, you can tell after 52 weeks of weekly doing it does put a toll on you. But by going back and forth, and we sent a lot of our team member here. The core team that started here was by far 18 of our best people in Oahu. So we needed the core team to get us started here. And then since Alun Kauai Farming on GNR, we're roughly about 80 people now. I would say 50% full-time, the other 50% made up of currently seasonal H2A, rotating in and out. And we're all looking to continue to expand. We recently acquired Kauai Shrimp. And with that, it does come with a 360 acre across the street of the shrimp farm itself, which currently it was with Hartung. I think at the end of this month, it's the sub license or use is expired, or Josh has decided to return the ground 2 years on a 2-year agreement where we're getting it back a little sooner. So it's likely we'll have crops in the ground this winter. I think most critical, again, going back to, learning how to farm in Kauai, besides finance, market, labor, bringing in supply, having supply here is critical at the right timing. Logistic is one of the biggest hurdles going forward. And I just want to share that when we started, we were looking at, okay, maybe 5 container load a week in our first year. Second year, 10. In our second year, we had a few weeks where we shipped over 10 container. And it seems like that's a magic number. It's a ceiling number. I wouldn't say a magic number. Once you hit 10, we find that the logistic of getting the container to the port is almost next to impossible. As we all know, it's 16 miles. You're climbing 700 feet elevation from here to the top of Kalaheo. And the road is windy. No trucker really want to do that route. There's 2 shipping days, right? Tuesday and Friday. Most of major holidays falls either on a weekend or a Monday. A lot of time, when we ship Friday, you don't get the container Saturday, although you arrive Saturday, young brother won't unload. The ship is in dock, but they won't open and unload. So a lot of time you miss the holiday. July 4th, I think it was on a Monday. We ship Friday, we get it Tuesday, it's no use. So your shipping day is really Tuesday, but with each shipping day, the time of receiving in YB, it's only between 8 and 11. on a non-shipping day. They open up the shipping day to go to 3 o'clock plus. But still, to get 5 container on this 16 mile, it's really tough. A turnaround time for a trucker is about 3 hours. On Oahu, that same 16 mile, a trucker can do 3 trucks in one day. From the port to Kapolei. You're on an even highway and it's quick. Here it's not, it's dangerous. Memorial Week. We also lost a container. From the standpoint we had, it's in a peak of our sweet onion season. And then we're starting the melon, so we have 14 containers. 3 containers did not make it for on time. 1 onion container fell apart. When I say fell apart, lucky there was no big accident on the highway. The trucker, normally when they head back east, they will take the Kauai coffee route. It's a lot less steeper. So this particular trucker had almost 70,000 pounds of sweet onion. And it, when it made past the Kauai Shrimp Visitor Center, as it was climbing up that hill, it detached, rolled back 200 feet and flipped over. So today, we're still working on a train for that container. Had he imagined it was up, going up Kala Hill, you know, wipe out 10 cars. So things will happen, you start to press trucks and time. Is there enough trucker on this island to stand by 10 drivers, move 10 containers on one shipping day? No. Can't get enough driver to drive. So. I mean, again, I don't have a detailed plan for Kekaha yet, but I do think the potential for Kekaha is tremendous. And just trying to give a vision of what it's like. I'm gonna pass this up. Lord, you don't mind. Yeah. Yeah. I emailed this to Josh, Wendy, Market Middle Model. This is New Zealand, 2004. And then after we take this sheet, one each, and then one.
You guys had it version?
You know, like we look for coaches. We see a good team, we see a good coach, a good environment, we go after.
Can do you electronic version? We just did.
I don't know.
This is the New Zealand Agriculture Report, annual report by the ministry. Again, I didn't go to have anyone's email. I sent it to Mark this morning, Wendy. Josh. You want a copy as well? We have Jason's email we look forward to there. As I was saying, in life, we look for coaches. I still look for coaches, and I have, you know, several key people over time. One of them is even a longtime steam company who retired, which I consult quite often. You look for model, and in recent years, coming across and doing business with New Zealand, I can't think of any model that we should, outside of New Zealand, that's kind of unique. I mean, they're at the end of Earth. They're so far away logistically. Yet, if you turn to page 4, just their economic impact on ag is phenomenal. 31 billion US export. Agriculture. I know firsthand, the kiwi industry alone is a beautiful model, one crop. And they're at about 5.4 New Zealand dollar export. That's huge. It's about 3.17. Can we, target something around here? Someday that could be an export crop. We have the water, we have the land. We may have to start looking at that vision. And that's the whole point, it has to start somewhere. The last sheet that went around is a 2003 same report, 20 years ago. And it does give a nice history where way back in 1965, they started out under 10 billion, but it's grown. They would never, wake up and be a $54 billion export. It has to start somewhere. And, maybe we'll never get to there, but at least if we hit 1 billion one day, that's huge. So, the report is a nice 76 page. I emailed it to you guys, both 2003 and 2024. Just something to have on hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. Yes, members online, apologies, I think Wendy has the electronic version, she's gonna
I just.
share with folks, okay?
No hands raised, Karen.
No pistol. Thank you. As we move to item F3, presentation by Josh Uehara and Mike Fai of Kekaha Agriculture Association regarding recent activities and priorities.
Chair. And these members of the board. So Mike actually had a handout, I'm not sure. We got it together yet, so we had the same thing, we're gonna email a digital copy, but we actually thought that one of the best ways to start would be. Actually to briefly just recap some of the history of the Kekaha Ag Association for the board. So the Kekaha Agricultural Association was originally formed in 2003 as the tenants of the property tried to figure out how to organize the infrastructure here, because the infrastructure here left from the Kekaha Sugar Company was really designed to be operated by one entity that was assumed to be farming all of the land, right? You can see that in the irrigation infrastructure, the way the roads were laid out, the gate system being relatively open. The electrical microgrid pervading the property, and essentially the assumption was that one operation would be running the whole thing, including some of the municipal drainage system for Kekaha town, because in fact, the town had been built up around the sugar plantation and the sugar mill itself. And so you can see that legacy of that sort of system design and layout of the infrastructure even today. And because of that, that presented some unique challenges for the tenants when the plantation did ultimately unfortunately go under. And we had multiple tenants now spread across the property because we had to cooperate managing the irrigation infrastructure, managing common maintenance fees on things like the road, figuring out how to deal with the electrical microgrid, which was built, prior to many of the regulatory conditions today governing utilities, etc. And really, if we were to be successful as farmers, we had to come together and figure that out essentially for ourselves at the time. And in discussions with the state, ultimately, that took about 5 years, we were able to consummate the revised memorandum of agreement, which is the contract between the KAA and the state as far as the management of the infrastructure out here. And so the scope of that included, the irrigation surface water systems up to the diversions, the hydroelectric plants, the drainage canal network, the road system, the microelectrical grid. And it was well understood that there were many sort of gaps in the agreement, but the intent was sort of a public-private partnership to manage the property to help the state in that task, because there's so much detail and complication in doing that in a way that is good, not only for the tenants, but also for the surrounding community, because again, that's the way the system was developed that was seen as the best way forward. And so in that, the KAA was tasked with coming up with the strategic plan for the property, coming up with the strategy for maintaining and developing the infrastructure itself. Coming up with a strategy for how to interact with the tenants, which comprise the association. And so because of that, there's a relatively unique structure where the KAA itself comes up with an estimate for what the maintenance and operating fees for the property would be. And we essentially charge ourselves that fee with some strict rules on that all of the money we collect in that regard has to go back into the property itself. So managing the operations, reinvesting in capital improvements. And in doing so, we've also been very effective at lobbying with the state to get the state itself to reinvest in what is ultimately its own property. And this includes things like when we looked at the overall property and realized that, you know, the infrastructure was entirely within the ADC's purview, but not all of the land was, and not all the land related to agriculture was. So for example, the production area of the Kauai Shrimp Farm was a Department of Ag Park, but was heavily dependent on the ADC property infrastructure actually to operate. And similarly, several of our facilities were originally under DLNR leases or Department of Ag leases, but were again dependent on the ADC. And technically that was somewhat questionable, given that the ADC was not a utility. So we were able to work with the state to fix that sort of structural issue by getting those lands transferred to the ADC between 2015 and 2022. So those are the types of issues that we've looked at as the KAA. Okay, I think Mike's got some handout. We thought what would be good to look at in that regard is the situation is dynamic on the ground, and as managing these types of lands and infrastructure always will be. So we have a handout here from actually, I think it's about 5 years ago, just prior to COVID.
Thanks.
So this is a presentation we put together for the Senate, State Senate Ways and Means Committee in late 2019. And again, we'll send the digital copy to all the board members. But I thought this would be a very instructive example to use in looking at how we have to manage you know, these issues for the property. Given you can see back in 2020 that we're going into the session, what types of topics we looked at tackling with the legislature. So we looked at you know, plans for upgrading the irrigation system. That's sort of the first top of mind for us, because one of the first priorities we identified with the KAA's formation was the need to transition the infrastructure to some kind of sustainable footing. And we knew that that would be a decades-long project. And this is, you can see sort of the culmination of that in terms of design. And so we realized that through the course of managing the system through various storms, we had, you know, an earthquake a while ago, if some of you remember that. And we've seen events that can damage the surface water system and make it very difficult to maintain. More recently, we've had the mediation agreement that we were successfully able to negotiate and navigate. And that means the system has to operate at a much lower capacity than it was originally designed for, which required a real, you know, step back to rethink how this is done. And we came up with a pressurized irrigation system as the concept. Now, given the way that the state funding came through, you know, we were able to get funding specifically just for materials. And would be trying to seek funding for installation. And what we came up with as our strategy was, we would try to do some of the work ourselves since we were able to get the materials procured. And we actually were recently able to put in phase 1 at our own expense, while we were trying to figure out how to secure state funding to do the rest. But that is sort of our long-term plan, originally conceived in this particular design, actually, back in, I think, 2011. And so we've been working on it ever since, you know, slow and steady, getting the materials, putting it in, seeking additional state funding. But things come up right in between. So we're still working on that. You can see on the next page, we have some big picture stats on some of the things that we were working on, and I'll update a couple of the numbers for you now. So at the time, we had listed our recent capital investments over the past decade at 55 million. As you heard from Mark earlier, Portillo's put in 15+ million. Other members have put in probably 2 or 3 million combined. So we're actually at this point looking at a little upwards of $70 million capital improvements from the tenants themselves in this property. And the annual financial contribution to operations, as you can see, back in 2019 was listed at 49.5 million. And we average about 1.5 million, a little over that, prior to Heartland stepping back anyway. So the total operational contribution to the property, just running the O&M, keeping the ditches open, etc. The members have put in since then, if we add that in, probably close to $60 million. So it's a very substantial operation that is funded by the tenants themselves directly. And there are multiple reasons why, that structure really worked out well for the state and continues today, as long as we can figure out, how to successfully navigate these next few transitions, which is, for us, always top of mind. So you can just see the next page is a little bit of an overview of the property itself and where it falls in relation to others. I'll take this opportunity to mention, you can see prominently on that map, the DHHL property that's featured there. And very recently, we've done a lot more work to reach out and really try to be good neighbors and figure out a plan, because you can see from this picture that a lot of the infrastructure we share, whether it's access or irrigation water or drainage, really doesn't respect, administrative boundaries. It runs with the land, as it always has. And so it behooves us to partner effectively with them to figure out how do we ensure that we're mutually successful? How do we take into account their needs when we're looking at capital funding from the legislature for the surface water system, etc. And you can see in this map why that is so important. So if you go to the next page, you can start to see back in 2019, we've identified as some of our priorities, and you can kind of see the traces of that effort continuing today. So at the time, it wasn't clear that, some of the changes with respect to this facility, for example, would happen. And so we identified back then that what we needed was a agricultural post-harvest processing facility, some kind of aggregator facility for distribution, etc., for the farming that would take place in the area. And so you can start to see if we had to build it from scratch. This was some of our idea. Actually, this building depicted here tied to a dairy attempt at Mahala Foods, that some of you may be familiar with. But there's an opportunity potentially to acquire the structure, and we're looking at plans. How would we build this processing facility? Since then, that's become, the funding we were able to secure for the Kekaha Agricultural Association processing facility, a CIP that we got in the last session. Ideally, it would take place in this building, right? So we identified the need from a strategic perspective a while ago and have been looking at adapting the tactics, we use to achieve that, because we realized that is going to be one of the next steps required to really unlock the potential of this property. Related to that and sort of a heavier lift infrastructure perspective would be the main track overhaul. So that's the ag road. You may get a chance to drive on that during some of your site visits today. And you see that in front of me today. We've started to figure out alternative strategies to regrind the road and re-roll it in sections that are cheaper than repaving it. But ultimately, there are issues with the bridges that need to be addressed. Hence, you're going to see, some of that in the Kekaha Bridges CIP, that we got funding at least to do the design work, but we still need to secure the funding for the entire overhaul. And we have been working in exploring those possibilities with the PMRF as well as USDA Rural Development directly have several relevant programs. And so we're not just looking at always going back to the state legislature, but we're trying to actively explore all of the alternatives for those kinds of funds. The other thing, as we've had to live with here on West Kauai for a very long time, is understanding we live in a very dry, climate, and there's a lot of risk for wildfire. This we identified back in 2019 as a priority, and obviously continues to be a priority as the entire state has sort of witnessed. more recently, unfortunately. So a lot of these things you can see, how, these strategic issues sort of evolve over time, right? We know what the needs are for the property, but exactly how we're approaching, addressing those needs may change as circumstances change. But many of those things are very long-term projects, which is what we've noticed and expected, honestly, for a property like this. Another big priority we had on the next page, at the top is the replacement of the Waialae Hydro plant. And so we're, happy to report, I think the turbine units are on site, right, Mike?
They're in the building next door.
So we identified, if you go into that building, you can see on the casing, there's a big stamp on it, I think it's 1906, 1908. Yeah, so there's some of the original equipment or parts, at least from 1908, still running that hydro plant. And with the mediation of the Waimea Watershed Agreement, we were able to figure out what is the operating range we need to build and design this around, based on the surface water agreements that we were able to negotiate. And so we've secured the funding to, working with Ken, to get the hydro units here on site, and we expect that construction to take place this year. But that permitting, working on that. Yeah. Yeah, and then below that, you can see some pictures from, some of our member farms, including some of the fundraisers that we do with the community. So then just some general information, but I thought it would be instructive to go over, when we talk about a lot of our present day issues, a lot of them are things that have been ongoing for a very long time. And you can see in our presentation to WAM, back in 2019, we're still working on those same issues. Now, thankfully, we can point to a lot of the progress that we've been able to make over that time. And there are new issues that have sort of evolved, right? So we've been dealing with, for example, the NPS issue for the property, really specifically since 2008, I want to say it became a real issue. Over the years, through various twists and turns in the legal aspect of the case, through various changes in administrative responsibilities, through administration priorities, etc., that issue has evolved in various ways. And we can, talk about things like the open floodable space that we came up with as a way to, in fact, improve the surface water quality before we have to pump it out to the ocean, which we're able to secure DOD funding, to help us with that. But now obviously we have a different situation with the NPDES final permit being published. Now we're gonna have to figure out and work with ADC on how do we address, the permit conditions, which are quite severe. But, just sort of the latest step in a long history of dealing with that issue in general. So beyond that, we're looking forward to, working with our state legislators and with the state administration to hopefully partner at the federal level. We also reach out to our federal delegation as well to look at ways we can continue to move the property forward. I'm very excited personally for the possibility as alluded to with Alec and their operation. You can see the volume of production of actual food from West Hawaii has gone up exponentially since they've started. And as you mentioned, 10 containers a week is actually quite a lot, but relative to the overall potential of the property is still just the first steps, right, in getting towards some kind of economically sustainable scale. And so I see while we're, dealing with these infrastructure issues that we've been dealing with for a long time, we're finally able to see the start of, what the strategy looks like to really make a dent in food production that has a real impact for the rest of the state. Anything else, Mike?
I have a couple of emergency things we wanna, I don't know if you wanna bring that up.
Okay,
Is that other paper?
yeah.
The next one.
All right, yeah, so some of these issues, they are ongoing, but have become much more recently, very urgent. So I guess we should highlight some of those for you today. We've identified some emergency funding really required to address the Cauquenes irrigation system that's critical not only to the ADC Malpa lands and DHL ultimately, but also for higher risk mitigation, because a lot of those lands are where we in fact see the highest fire risk. And there are issues like the entire system being dependent on Tulo reservoir. And the reservoir's sluice gate is stuck in a certain position, right? So we can't actually control the outflow other than by controlling the level of the reservoir, which modulates the static pressure of the water in the reservoir. So that's a critical issue, right? We've been living with it for a while, but it's starting to show that it's not a really sustainable situation. And we have several issues like that along the Cauquenes system in particular that we've highlighted. So when I was visiting a couple weeks ago, we took advantage of that visit and, made sure that they understood, what our emergency funding needs were and are exploring all the different options. We understand it's not as easy just, holding your hand out, but these are some of the things that very recently we started to make a hard push. And it would be our top priority in this upcoming legislative session. One other thing I think I will add, is, by acres and total production, we haven't seen a lot. We've seen some, beginnings of success with a couple operations on the ADC Malpa land, but not a lot, but that's not for lack of quality or potential of that land. That was some of the best yielding land, under sugar, and the elevation, drainage, exposure make it really ideal for many crops that wouldn't do as well on the plain below. But what had really held people back and still holds the existing operations back to a certain degree, is addressing the reliability of that surface water system. Okay. We have looked into also, there are some options to pump water up from the Clicama ditch that might be, able to make a significant portion of those acres much more reliable, but as you, step back and take a look at the property, please don't take the small number of acres relatively that are leased and in production today as any indication of the potential, but there's a lot of potential up there. The other thing is, there really would be, putting that back into production be a big win-win for the ADC obviously and the community, because that's also where we see a lot of our fire risk, coming from. Having that property actively managed and actively cultivated is probably the most effective thing we can do to address that risk.
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
So, thank you very much, Joe. If you can mind working with Wendy to make sure we can get the digital versions and get to all the board members.
All right,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Sorry, wait, any public,
No answer is sure.
thank you. This time, board will take, informational item F4, presentation by Dexter Kishida, Climate Resilience Manager of the Hawaii Department of Transportation regarding Port Allen, short, medium, and long-term plans for shipping within Hawaii. For this information item, the board can engage in discussion. Mr. Kishida.
Thank you very much, Chair, Vice Chair, Board. Really appreciate the invitation to come in and present and also discuss the transportation needs of the agricultural sector, specific to Kauai. I'm pretty new to the Department of Transportation, just joining their team in January. As in a climate resilient position, specifically focusing on food security and biosecurity for the state. Next slide. Thanks. The one thing I'd just like to highlight, because a lot of the background stuff I'm just gonna gloss over. Everybody knows the need and the why. But one thing that Director Sniffen is really been integrating is this one transportation system and really thinking holistically about how we do transportation in Hawaii. That we know we connect community, and that's our role. And that includes the movement of not only people, but goods throughout the state and doing it equitably. Next slide, please. So we hope to build a resilient, effective, efficient, and secure ag transportation network that really supports our local farmers and ranchers. And through that one transportation model of knowing that our highways, are really through water and air. And that'll help us reduce our dependency on the imports. But also, as we build up these systems, enhancing biosecurity as well. The goal that we have is to increase not only market access really statewide, but across the world, as mentioned earlier. Next slide, please. Specific to Kauai, some of the needs that we've identified, and we've been starting to host talk story sessions with farmers, with distributors, with just different parts of the agriculture sector. And we realize that there's definitely a limited inter-island shipping capacity and frequency, as mentioned by our former briefing. I think that highlights some very key examples and issues that we run across as we try and move products across the state. Another issue we have is not everybody can fill full containers, and so lack of consolidated ag hubs seems to be an issue that keeps coming up over and over again, because that's through that consolidation is where we're gonna find the efficiencies of moving products. We also understand that there's high transportation costs, especially for small shipments. And so again, through the aggregation, through or these kind of cargo hubs or value add centers, et cetera, that we can, I think, find a bit more efficiency in lowering some of the costs of transportation. We also realize that there's some infrastructure gaps. One big thing that, as I step into my role is, and I guess I've been in ag and food systems for a bit, but one thing it just didn't dawn on me is the breaking cold chain that we have. That you as a producer, you as a manufacturer can get a refrigerated product, but then it gets to our port and possibly sits for hours, if not days sometimes, in an unrefrigerated area, or needing then some kind of gas capacity in a generator to keep your product at temp. So the need for cold chain and facilities both near and at port is something that has risen to the top of needs by many folks in the ag sector. And through all this, it builds resilience in our food system. So through that disaster and disruptions that occur and really occurring more and more often, we know that building this infrastructure is key, but also how we build it is going to be key. Next slide, please. So as we look in the short term, so in the 0 to 2 year range, really, we're not going to be able to build a whole lot of big stuff, right? We're not going to redo a port in 2 years. So it's looking at the programmatic things that we can change. It's looking at, can we build out temporary aggregation points near the harbor? And in the case for Kauai, your harbor area is so tight as is, we're really looking in the neighborhood of the harbor and the airport. It's not gonna be directly adjacent or at port. We also need to streamline and expand the Island Ag Discount Program that currently is run through Young Brothers. Another piece is piloting the shared logistics co-loading that packing facility, right? The ability to aggregate, fill full containers, and then ship is something we need to get going. Next slide, please. A little longer term, within the next 5 years, is building more permanent agricultural cargo hubs down here. And it could be somewhat like a modular facility, as in the picture in the presentation, where they're actually sort of 40-foot containers that are built and can be stuck together like Lego pieces almost. Pretty amazing structure, which also then, if needed, you hook up and haul inland or somewhere else if there's an emergency. It's integrating port and airport operations with digital scheduling, because one of the issues, I think that actually, as mentioned again by the esteemed presenter, is you think you know what time you're supposed to drop off, and there's a delay or something happens, or a ship just can't land or can't dock because of port conditions. And so having better scheduling and notification systems is something that we know needs to happen and it's hopefully in the lesser of those 3 to 5 years. Then the processing facilities is also something that we find key. It seems as though a lot of the manufacturing is starting to move back to Oahu. And one way that we can consolidate better is by having value add facilities on our neighbor islands, not only keeping jobs on our neighbor islands, but also during shipment, it creates a much easier and efficient process to do that. And longer term is really figuring out how the one transportation system best applies to agriculture, whether through highways and harbors or highways and airports or all three, making it seamless for our producers to engage and move products is what we're moving to. Disaster resilient transportation corridors, and so that's where the discussion with Port Allen comes up. One issue is redoing a port is multi-hundreds of millions of dollars. And so while resilience is a key piece and having a backup port on island is essential, coming up with the business plan and model to ensure we can build the facility to what it's needed. And if you've been to Port Allen, again, the surrounding facility, the surrounding area to the port is already pretty congested. So if we're talking of needing to move 50 to 100 20-foot containers, there's not a whole lot of land in that area to maneuver that much volume in its current state. So a juggling of that whole harbor area is gonna be needed if we're looking at activating that to the full potential of the west side of Hawaii's ag, or the full ag production potential on Hawaii. As well as we're looking at sustainable shipping. How do we get lower emission vessels? And that might mean smaller vessels, which could work perfectly for West Hawaii. Electrified trucks and greener ports, including sustainable aviation fuels. And so this supports food security in a few ways. Reducing time to market is something that I'm really looking at. How do we streamline that? And we know that the big market is on Oahu or through Oahu. So how do we shrink the time from your field to Oahu and then to the final destination? How do we lower the cost barriers for small and medium producers, really producers overall, as well as strengthening the local economy, keeping food dollars here? So meaning, how do we help increase production value add at our neighbor islands, Hawaii in this instance, to keep even more dollars on island and ensuring year-round availability of our local products? So of course, I would never come to you without an ask. Data collection. Again, to justify the redoing of a port, we're gonna need data volumes. We're gonna need to look at the potential, and I can look at how many acres and how many acres could be in production with water, etc. But with the businesses here and the projected future businesses here, can we scale out? What does the volume of agriculture production look like on the west side of Hawaii? How can you better support our infrastructure funding requests as we go in for redoing ports, etc., and in airport facilities for cargo? I think an area that ADC could really assist with is public-private partnerships of ag logistics. I don't know, I don't have that fleshed out yet, but this came up with multiple conversations with folks, and doing better at and building public-private partnerships in the movement of agricultural products, to building the building of buildings, the physical movement, or even developing additional ways to get stuff across water. As well as the development of pilots. And most of all, the ongoing communication and collaboration. So which is why I'm so appreciative that DOT is invited to the table today to hopefully kick off as there's not a whole lot of finite and final thoughts on my presentation today, but this kicks off the conversation, I hope, of the direction that DOT wants to head in our food security goals and how we can best partner with ADC. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dexter. I think before we take questions, thanks for joining us. Members, I've asked Dexter to kind of piggyback and follow us throughout the next few months as we go to Maui and the Big Island and kind of give similar presentations on the infrastructure issues on other islands. And really it's to kind of let us know what they're thinking about. There's a lot of grants, federal grants out there that I know the DOT is looking at. I know the HDOA, Chair Hurd's looking at. And so I just want to add that, we're here, Wendy Gady and her staff are here. If you guys, there's ways we can integrate to work on figuring out who's best to do what, who's best to apply for what.
Absolutely.
That'd be helpful. I think there's a lot of synergy there. I even with the local ag discounts for young brothers, I mean, I think some of the stuff you guys are working on to see if the state can help meet young brothers halfway on that stuff, it's critical for the small farmer who's already kind of operating on a very razor thin margin. That's critical. I think the realities of the cold chain are critical. I think a lot of our harbors lack even the electrical infrastructure to support the containers. We got to make sure they're plugged in. And then, of course, Dexter, the DOE, right, and the farmer school role, how that kind of fits into this, and the disaster resilience kind of playing, right? All of our schools are also our civil defense shelters, and that's schools that where everyone gets funneled to in disasters. And so looking at cold storage on the school level, getting fresh product into the schools, and that's critical too, if you want to provide local fresh to in a disaster situation. So thank you for joining us, and don't forget about us.
Absolutely not. One of our key partners.
Any board members, any questions?
Yes. One of the things is, I'm thinking about, the space that you have at ports and things, because, for example, if there's gotta be some kind of coordination with the farmers as far as what they're growing, knowing what they're growing. Because if you're gonna consolidate at the port and stuff, there's different products, like, for example, limes and lemons don't have to be refrigerated to the point of lettuce or, these other things. So they're gonna have to be going in different containers.
Yep.
So, to really make this thing work, you gotta fill a container and send. All this stuff has to be coordinated. And I guess that's gonna fall on AUC more than anybody else, all of this, so. Maybe I shouldn't open my.
I was gonna say, that's actually the hope in the partnership with HC.
Yeah,
But
I just was thinking about that and I'm thinking, wow, this is like, it's a lot of coordination.
absolutely,
And I think the board member, Kimoto, from what I gather, what I'm hearing is a lot of those conversations are happening all over the place. I mean, one thing having him come is to kind of try to start to bring all that.
Bring it up together.
Yeah, I think we're all thinking along those lines. Dexter's an ag guy, but I think is HDOA considers what they're doing and DOT considers what they're doing, kind of who's the best person to be doing what.
I mean, we do manage the ports, so on the infrastructure and near and around the ports, that's why I'm glad Director Sniffen created this position to really focus on it, knowing that it's a key issue for our state. And so we can help to consolidate and coordinate these discussions and that movement forward, so we're organized and 12 of us aren't doing 12 different things. There's just not enough resources.
It's good to see the collaboration.
Other members?
Another question. Thanks, Dexter, for the presentation. I was just curious, kind of within the existing footprint of these ports, is there room for like additional infrastructure or aggregation facilities? Or is that within like the DOT area that they manage? And my second question, sorry, is in discussions with Young Brothers on this, what's kind of been their reaction and their kind of willingness to step forward and help find a solution for these issues?
So far with Young Brothers has been pretty aligned in the thoughts that kind of I've highlighted. To go back to the first question though, that's where they wouldn't be aligned because there's just not enough room on our ports itself. So a lot of this aggregation or the consolidation to containers really needs to happen off port. That's the safest, most efficient. If you've been to Santa Island Young Brothers Terminal in the morning, we had to change some things because the line would just go down the street and people are sitting there for hours waiting to drop or pick up. Cause there's not enough space. So for efficiency's sake, we've got to move. And as Mr. Su explained, even here, to get from here to Nawili Wili during peak times is just irresponsible, right? It's already packed as is. But then the time spent is money spent for all of our ag businesses, as Chair said, on razor thin margins, we know that we've got to maximize every minute. And so how do we move it near but off port to get these containers full, dropped in an area quickly, so YB then could pick up and load, while keeping temp and everything else. So yeah, it's definitely a puzzle, but we have some great minds on it, so I think we'll figure this out. It just won't be on our ports.
I think that's critical, what, where Trump is talking about, because that, and to your point, as the F pins evolve and all that, right? I mean, you got a lot of cold storage requirements, a lot of moving pieces. And so how we place those things and where we place them, going forward is critical.
And as long as you can get, I guess, enough product for a full container, it doesn't necessarily have to be like, at the port, it could be anywhere. And it's pretty easy for, any of the YB or I guess Matt's in some cases to handle.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the other pieces of the conversation, I always thought we need to build this huge refrigerated facility near our ports. And I think what's really coming up is the conversation of just power. Being able to plug in refrigerated containers at the port and having more refrigerated containers in the state will be actually more efficient than loading, unloading near our ports. Especially for our larger farmers who can fill a 20 or 40-foot container. Why not just drop it, plug it in, so YB has time? And then we could maybe look at drops later in the evening or off times, not within that expanded but still pretty tight window that we're looking at. And then in some cases for export, we do know unloading is actually going to be more efficient because of the requirements through USDA or even customs. It's easier if the container is unloaded, and so having that kind of modular unit where it would be unloaded for them to inspect and then loaded may be actually the better option. So the conversations with our federal partners have been ongoing and are key as we think about what the needs are for our ag industry.
Earl?
Yes. Hey, Dexter. Long time.
Hey,
no see.
Earl.
I have a question in front of me that has to do with the short-term DOT anticipated actions. Is there any, during the short term, is there any infrastructure upgrades proposed during that now to 2-year period for Nawili Wili or Port Allen?
Now will be the planning phase. So getting the data necessary to justify what this looks like, right? To activate Port Allen or to have the necessary revitalization of Port Allen is going to be significant. So we need to have a strong justification on what's going to be moving through there. Not to say that a few boat charters aren't enough, but it's not. 10 containers is not enough. We're looking at needing to ship at least like 100 containers per sailing. So 200 a week or so. That's kind of minimum is the rough estimate, but we've got to sharpen our pencils on that as well. And it's not saying that it all has to come from ag, right? This is a port that everybody can use. And so to do the necessary upgrades, which means really just redoing the port. And it's also going to take it offline for a decent amount of time.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Earl, another piece that
Yes.
for Nawili Wili airports and Port Allen even, is power. Our power infrastructures at the ports are not able to easily include the refrigeration or power needs of the ag sector. So that's another piece that we're looking at is how do we install and upgrade the availability of power at our ports? Which is probably somewhere around like photovoltaics or other types of renewable energy generation. Because we also want to meet our energy security goals that are still open for comment, if anybody would like to go to our website.
Mhm. Okay, okay.
Excellent. What you're basically saying though is if you gotta do the data collection first before you guys even move, we're not looking,
At 2 years, right?
we're looking 2 years down the road.
Correct. Correct, but we gotta start now.
Yeah.
To justify this so we can get this going.
Are there, other places throughout the state that maybe have a quicker timeline that you guys may already have some data for, or?
Oh, there are, actually on Maui, it might be a good example of how. In looking at the increases of what's being produced. And coming off island, Hawaii Island also, we can get some data, so that's why I think. The acres to containers, and of course, it depends what, I mean, there's a lot of. Fine detail, but we can get some proxy numbers and we've started to aggregate them. But because ADC has the unique ability, kind of. Not only being landowner, but also being able to create value add opportunities, et cetera, et cetera. I think the conversation is gonna be really rich on West Kauai. Because we can get to a level of detail that is a little harder when we're trying to get this from 200 private farmers.
So what you're saying is, Alec gotta gear up really fast and.
Or at least give us like the real projections, right, of where we're gonna look like in 2, 5, 10 years. To make sure that we're growing half a step ahead of where he's gonna go.
Which I guess kind of aligns, but I think he's kind of not ready right now, ready for that, so.
Correct, so that's why now's the time to plan.
Offer a comment on Port Allen?
Sure.
I mean, we've been looking at it for a while. You got an air base there that's hardly used. The state owned literally over 200 acres.
On the other side, yeah.
Yes, that infrastructure, I think you can build from scratch, top notch. And if you sit down with Bruce Robinson, he has a 7.5 megawatt system. Hydropower. You might wanna strike a deal with somehow. Between photovoltaic on this side of the island, it's a no-brainer, and sit down with, the Bruce Robinson, them, they control all the ground in that area. They can be very creative. So you're talking private partner with, public, that's one family, and you need to bring them in. Because not only that, their ground, beautiful irrigation system for 8,000 acres, all gravity flow. Where can you find that? And they have, unfortunately, Jason, Chair, they have more water than you guys are fighting for. And Maui, under control, so something to think about.
Right, any other questions from board members, the public?
No, Andre, sure.
All right, thank you, sir. Next informational item, item F5, presentation by Les Milnes, president of the Kalepa Coalition, regarding the coalition's current operations and challenges. For this presentation, the previous rules apply, the board would not be engaging. Here.
There, I believe that he submitted the electronic report.
Is that being provided to the public?
It's just recently been received. So are you suggesting that we would need to table that?
Is that the only thing they have? Is he there to present?
He is not here.
I guess I would suggest deferring this then,
Okay.
but that's up to chair.
Pursuant to council, the chair will defer item F5.
But I guess since it's on the agenda, you might want to take public testimony, if any.
Any public testimony regarding F5?
No answers, Chair. Oh, wait, one enemy. Fern, go ahead.
Aloha, I was actually trying to testify on one of the first two items, but it didn't appear that a pause was given to do that. I asked in the question and answer, but nobody responded.
Oh. We didn't see the hand raised. Did you have a specific question on which one?
I actually would like to provide testimony. The first item would have been fine, or I could have done it to the second. I mean, I can make it applicable to almost anything, but it's really relevant to the first two items mostly.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you all. I'm sorry I couldn't be there in person today. I wanted to speak a little bit to the ADC board and staff, really about the kuleana of what our state lands are meant to produce, food for our people. I'm very concerned, and I continue to be concerned about some of the former leasees' use, particularly Hartung, formerly Syngenta's use of a lot of those soils and West Side agricultural lands, because really I believe that that land needs to be remediated. I think that there should be requirements that are placed on those that are leasing our state lands, that they return the land in at least as good, if not better condition than they received it. And we've seen this issue for over 100 years now on really the largely utilized land almost in liquidation for the benefit of certain agricultural uses. And I believe that, you know, I personally have concerns that Aloon Farms is now going to take over land that has never been properly remediated from experimental pesticide use. You know, we've seen decades of experimental use happening with genetically engineered crops and restricted use pesticides on that land without really any remediation. We've had this incredible toxic cycle out there, you know, resulting in depleted soils and waters. And I'm just asking that the ADC consider having stricter requirements for the use of these pesticides, and that they really look at the long-term vision for what this is for. And, you know, I'm very grateful to start to see that we're seeing food production with Aloon Farms coming in, producing food rather than just experimental research that we've seen out there for decades. But we really need to have a bolder vision, I guess, of what that land could do and provide, and really appropriate crops and the use of agricultural techniques that Hawaii has been compatible with could result in less pesticide use and a regenerative land treatment and management of our lands out there. That would actually be really important for fire and disaster management, because we would address the concerns with flooding and fire if we return these indigenous crops and wetland systems as a part of that. And so I'm just really asking that you guys understand the research behind the concerns that have happened on West Kauai, and also be very bold about the expectations that you have for the people that are leasing our state lands. There's liability lawsuits happening across the United States right now with attempts to basically big corporations like Corteva are fighting to not have liability in association with pesticide lawsuits. And who does that liability then land back on? Is it the ADC, and is it our kuleana to be ensuring that we aren't liable for the impacts of these pesticides? So I would ask that the things that are banned in Europe and much of European Union are not used on West Kauai, and that you guys just really think about some of these long-term uses. And I appreciate it. And again, I really wish that I could have been there in person today, but I appreciate all of you. And we really do need to focus on the food security aspect, because if those ships don't come, and like we went through COVID, we deal with these emergency situations, we need to be having food growing here that we can actually consume, that'll feed our people. Not just stuff that is not used. And if we don't have those chemicals coming in, we need to be growing things that aren't dependent on them. So I really appreciate your time, everybody. Keep up the great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Bert. Any other testimony from the public?
Chair, I just had a couple questions that was in the Q and A and was from Kylie Wagner Cruz. And she asked, can ADC make all hard copy materials relied upon in these presentations available by sending them to the ADC email? Listen and posting them on the ADC's meeting website.
Yes, correct. Once we get back, the executive director will make all of the hard copies received today available to the public. That it. Okay, so moving on to item F6. Presentation by Alex Su, Olum Kauai Farming LLC, and Josh Uehara, Hartung Brothers Hawaii LLC, regarding the anticipated transfer of equity from Hartung Brothers Hawaii to Olum Kauai Farming. And members, we are able to engage in questioning on this.
We are.
Chair, but we would probably take public testimony before discussion by the board.
Sure.
Madam Chair, members of the board, again. So yeah, just very briefly, basically with the change in, some of the contracts, or really loss of some of the long-term contracts that have been, key for the Hartung operation going forward. Really was incumbent on us to try to figure out what would be the next steps, for the property that we had been licensing. And, as we know here on West Kauai, if the lands are left fallow for any period of time, they get overgrown very quickly and become very expensive with back into production. I was trying to estimate, because I was, involved at the time, originally re-clearing the land from, overgrown, polycoa, sugarcane, kitty grass. That was a severe fire hazard risk for the entire time. Leading up to that was many millions of dollars actually to clear this land, from the state we started with. And so the idea is, trying to figure out a way to avoid having that revert to that kind of state and, making it prohibitively expensive to get back into production. And thankfully, the timing has worked out. As Alec mentioned, been working for a number of years on trying to figure out, how to bring some scale agricultural production to West Kauai that was actually tied to food production. And so he's in the best position of anyone potentially to do this. Now, we haven't, finalized all of our agreements and things, but given the advanced stages of our discussion, we wanted to bring this to the board's attention, just to let everyone know what we're talking about.
I'll defer, like Josh said, we're still working on the detail of the transaction. We are exploring a combination of long-term permanent crop versus row crop. I've had many meetings with both DBN and Senate in terms of trying to work out, and Department of Education. We've been working with DOE for many years now, trying to figure out this, how do you we're at ground zero, trying to provide school lunches for, thousands of kids, every day. And there's a whole infrastructure of science, ag, post-harvest, not just the farming itself, but post-harvest handling, processing that needs to go on. So we're exploring a lot of different things. It's still in early stages. We have some pretty good idea of crop. Again, it'll be gauged as to how much further Port Allen or infrastructure logistics are gonna get moved in the next 3 to 5 years. And our investment will have to be curtailed based on that. We can't get it out timely, why, drop millions of dollars planting it. So a lot of moving parts, but at least it's getting started, and the details, we gotta work things out still.
Any testimony from the public?
No answer is Chair.
Board members, any questions? Seeing none, thank you for the update. I also would just offer that, thank you for both of you and Grove Farm too, and it's helping to keep the farmer school movement going. I know it hasn't been easy, the infrastructure's not there, but whenever the DOE's tried to, look at local food on their menus, you guys have always tried to step up for them, so thank you for that. Members, at this point, does anybody need a break or we keep going or? Yeah, going?
Now we're on.
Nina? Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break if that's okay. 5-minute recess. What was the specific one?
That's good.
Good job so far.
It's a lot to manage, yeah.
It is. I walked in, having a product.
Sure.
Something.
been on that today.
Yeah.
Getting, yeah. Talk about being in his farm. Talk about being in his farm.
All right, we could call the board meeting back to order. Before we move.
Right. Point to order.
Right, guys, we're gonna start the remainder. Before we move on to the chair's report and the action items, information item F7, executive director's report. As always, Wendy, thank you. Her reports are available by visiting the DBED website, dbed.hawaii.gov/adc/reports. We'll now move really quickly to the chair's report addressing items C1 and C2. And I apologize, I know the deputy attorney general is on here, I know they gotta jump off, but really quickly, the chair would like to.
Chair, I'll try to see if I can get the Attorney General. He was off.
Oh, okay,
I'll just see.
okay.
Sorry, I can't, but that's okay. You can move forward. We'll just save anything for another meeting if we have legal questions.
Okay. Just really quickly, chair's report, item C1, discussing the public first lawsuits, against, Hawaii Agribusiness Development Corporation. The chair and the executive director have met with the director, of the Office of Information Practices to determine the best way forward. And it's a clear intent of the chair, that the ADC will fully comply with the court's decision. Accordingly, all members of this board, will undergo sunshine law training at the earliest convenience. OIP will give us some advice as to how and when that occurs. But to ensure that we get the proper support, as we move forward, I'm also directing that all the ADC staff undertake sunshine law training as well, so that the corporation's operations are aligned with both the letter and the spirit of the law. And the OIP director will get back to Wendy as to when and how that occurs. But we want to get that done as soon as possible. And then with respect to item C2, that will take us into the action items. Just a quick comment that I intend to ensure that we comply with the bylaws of this corporation, and with the concerns raised previously by the state auditor regarding the failure of the ADC to appoint members to its standing committees. In today's action item, you will see that we will be addressing that going forward. So moving to action items, we'll take something out of order here, but I know they got to.
Did you
Yes.
get public testimony?
Oh, sorry. Any members of the public have any comments?
Sorry, Chair, I'm so sorry. You're good. I might have missed this. So are we putting the executive director's report later? Or,
We referenced it.
oh, okay, did we get
Yes.
public did we just check if there's public testimony? Or,
We have public testimony on the executive director's
No hands
report.
raised, Chair.
None raised.
okay, sorry, thank you.
Okay. Any public
just-
testimony regarding item C1,
No hands raised, Chair.
C2?
No hands raised.
And if there's no objection from the members, we'll take one of the action items out of sequence here, because I know they gotta run to another meeting. We'd like to take action item E3, request for approval to amend license agreement number L 08202 issued to Hartung Brothers Incorporated to withdraw field 117 in Kekaha, District of Waimea, County of Kauai, State of Hawaii, tax map key 41-2-002:003 portions. We're trying to do that.
I move to approve to amend the license agreement.
Second, motion by Board Member Trump, seconded by Jesse Cook. Any objections from the members? If not, so approved.
Oh, sorry, Chair, we have one hand raised.
Go.
Go ahead, Fern.
Thank you again, guys. I just want to emphasize one more time the importance of when these lands are abandoned, that some sort of testing, independent testing is done of remediation for the soil. So testing for what may be left and how we can remediate. There needs to be some sort of environmental control on the abandonment of these lands. Thank you very much.
Thank you for. Moving on to action item, well, we'll go back to one, I guess, right? Back to one here. Action item E1, appointment of members to the standing committee, standing administration committee, standing technical assistance committee, and the standing marketing and communications committee for ADC. Colleagues, pursuant to the bylaws of the ADC as chair, after careful consideration, I am assigning each active member to a committee in a way that balances expertise, efficiency, and representation. Before I announce the announcements, I do want to note that board member Glenn Hong is currently experiencing some personal difficulty with attending our board meetings, and so he's not being included currently, but as his time becomes available, we'll make that availability happen for him in a responsible way to meet quorum requirements, et cetera. So out of respect for situation, he will not be formally assigned to a committee at this time. Also to keep in mind for the board members that the ADC staff is currently managing a significant number of projects, high dollar projects throughout the state. And it's imperative that we keep a regular schedule and keep these committees moving so that we don't become any kind of impediment to that progress. So as we do that, please keep in mind, these are my initial recommendations. If any board members have any issues, please reach out and we can see if we can adjust those. But for the administration committee, purview to review and make recommendations on personnel, fiscal, and administrative matters. Members I'm appointing are Dave Hinazumi, Kara Kahahane, Dane Wicker, and myself. For a technical assistance committee, purview is to review and make recommendations on matters relating to the provision of technical assistance to agriculture enterprises, which I'm going to include all of our ADC projects. So these people are the kind of provided expertise to the staff as we move forward. Members Nathan Trump, Karen Seddon, Jason Okuhama, Dean Okimoto, and Jesse Cook. And finally, to the marketing committee, with the purview to review and make recommendations on the marketing of agricultural products and services, consistent with ADC initiatives and the state of Hawaii's agribusiness priorities. Appointing members Sharon Hurd, Dane Wicker, Jesse Cook, Nathan Trump, and myself. Hopefully this can provide a fair distribution of work, maintain some balance across everyone's subject matter expertise, and ensure our committees operate efficiently and effectively. So I thank you, all of you, for your willingness to serve. And if you have any concerns, please reach out and we can try to make some adjustments. Next item.
Oh, Chair, did you take public testimony?
Sorry about that. Any public testimony?
No hands raised, Chair.
No hands raised. Moving on to action item E2, request for approval to establish a permitted interaction group to review the draft strategic plan, recommendations, feedback, and any necessary changes, and provide the board of directors with an update at the September 2025 ADC Board of Directors meeting. A full report at the October 2025 ADC Board of Directors meeting for discussion and vote at the November 2025 ADC Board of Directors meeting. This timeline keeps us in line with the law, the requirement of the law. And at this time, I'd like to appoint.
You have to form the meeting for,
Oh,
you have to form the group. The board has to form the group.
as a motion to form this big.
Motion? Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Board Member Cook and a second by Board Member Okimoto. Any objections?
Public testimony
Public testimony?
Mind raised, Chair.
No hands raised.
and so discussion and vote.
Any discussion, members? Any objections? Seeing none, the measure is adopted. I will be appointing Sharon Hurd, HDOA Chair, Jesse Cook, Dane Wicker, Kara Kahahane, and myself to the strategic plan committee. I just have to keep in mind, members, for all the committee assignments that have been just done, each committee will have to elect its own chair. And I think work with Wendy's office to ensure that they are staffed properly, and noticed properly. Thank you. Moving on to action item 4. Request for approval to issue a license agreement to.
Sure, are we skipping 3 or?
We did 3 first.
Oh, we did, sorry.
No, no worries. Request for approval to issue a license agreement to Tawarn, Tanyami, and Tanawa Chak Ano for 58.81 gross acres, more or less, of Field 117 for agricultural use in Kekaha, District of Waimea, County of Kauai, State of Hawaii, tax dot key 41-2-002.001. Motion.
Second.
A motion by Board Member Okimoto, seconded by Board Member Trump. Is there any discussion?
The public testimony first.
Public testimony?
Mind raised, Chair.
Any discussion, board members?
Yes, I'd like to make some comments. I've met, I've been to the 2 farms that we're referencing here, and, you know, they have established, fields of, fruit growing, Asian fruits mostly. And, I will tell you that it's a shame that they have to move because they're just beginning the fruit. So, I'm all for them going over there, plus, you know, Ned, which I don't know which, you know, what his real name is, went to the farmer's market on Sunday, on Saturday, so I was here this past weekend. And, so I saw this pancake thing, and I knew he did some value added things with his fruits and stuff. And so I wanted to go up, and so I went up and I started to order, and I said, oh, how long is it gonna take? Cause there's a lot of people standing around. So, at least a half an hour to 45 minutes. My jaw dropped and I go, it must be really good. She goes, yeah. And then all the people over there are going, yeah, it's really good. You know, so, you know, what I'm basically saying is, you know, he's not only growing the fruit, but he teaches people, you know, probably how to use them and stuff like that. And, you know, they're fruits that are, most of Hawaii probably doesn't even know about a lot of it, right? And, hardworking, we visited the farm, clean farm, I mean, just, highly recommend that they get their land and can move on and become established farmers in the Kauai community.
Thank you. Any other board discussion?
Chair, I just wanted the board to know that both of these farmers have been not only grafting trees, but also planting and potted trees to move to ADC land for quite a few months. Exciting.
Yeah, it is, for sure. And again, I'd like to thank Loon and Josh for agreeing to give up this parcel for them, so. Any other discussion? Earl?
Yes. Let's see, this proposed license agreement is to two separate farmers, but they're sharing a single parcel. Is that uh, is there a precedent for that, or is there a potential problem with that? This unspecified relationship between the two entities on the same ADC parcel?
Executive Director. Just that.
I don't know, Chair and board members, I don't know that we have a written policy or procedure. It is not something that the board or the individual EDC staff requested. It was something that was requested by the farmers themselves. And they felt that it would also provide some backup. So if one person's on vacation, the other person can help watch their crop at the same time.
Okay.
Sure. I'd like to make a comment about, Alex, giving up that parcel for these people, but I think also it might be advantageous, both ways, because I think, Alex can probably help them with, some of the marketing, their stuff. And hopefully maybe, expand his pancake operation to Oahu so I can try it. So I think it might be synergistic. Useful.
Thank you. I think, Earl, so you had a follow-up, Earl?
Yeah, well, I was just wondering, for the sake of clarity, in case there's a problem, which I cannot imagine. I'm not a land manager or anything like that, but in case there's something that I cannot envision right now, because I don't have the background with ADC and its land management expectations, I guess, of its licensees. I just raised it just out of, in reading the submittal, looking for that more formal, some kind of partnership or something like that between the two entities being considered. That's all.
Thank you, Earl.
Yeah.
Any objections from the members moving forward? Any testimony from the public?
Hands raised, Chair.
All right, great. No objections, seeing none, measures adopted. Moving to the final action item, item E5. Request for approval to issue a request for a proposal to operate and maintain a high-pressure processing facility at the Central Oahu Food and Agricultural Hub, Whitmore Village, District of Wahiawa, City and County of Honolulu, State of Hawaii, tax map key number 17-1-002-001. Is there a motion to proceed?
Motion. Second.
The motion by Board Member Cook, seconded by Board Member Hinazumi.
Sorry, is the motion to approve the
Yes,
request? Okay, sorry, thank you.
any public testimony?
One.
Sure.
There we go. Go ahead, Frank.
Hi, guys. Thanks so much. I'm sorry to be the only one testifying, but I just want to say strong support for this. This is really important, and I really hope Kauai can get something like this as well. I'm super excited about what that Central Ag Oahu facility is doing, and I'm really hoping that we got one. Thank you.
Thank you, Fern. Any board discussion? If not, if there's any, are there any objections to moving forward? If not, measures adopted. This concludes our agenda for this board meeting. Their motion to adjourn. Happy with it?
You need a motion to adjourn.
Yeah. Is there a motion?
Second.
Second, motion to adjourn by board member Cook, seconded by board member Trump. If there's no objections, a comment from the public,
Seeing none there.
board, this meeting is adjourned. Board members, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.